as I started talking with the researchers, I discovered two things. One, they know more than I ever want to know about the statistics for placebo-controlled trials. And two, what the world needs is not another researcher chasing a tiny, tiny pot of money. What the world needs is an industry partner to fund and drive the research. And so that became my mission, to become that industry partner, to grow into a company with multiple practitioners and that would appeal to a mainstream audience of people with chronic pain, and help drive this to mainstream. The vision is integrative medicine, where the energy healer collaborates with the rest of the healthcare team, working with the doctors and the physical therapists and the chiropractors and acupuncturists and everyone else to give the person the best possible care.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes show. I am your host, Bolaabimbolaauthor. This is the show where we interview expert authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs in the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest all the way from California. Welcome to the show, Mike Sententia.
Bola, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'll read a bit about your bio before we start. Mike Sententia is the founder of the Healing Lab based in California, USA. Mike's studies into energy healing began in 1991 as a member of the Healing Touch Professionals Association and the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine. Mike is a specialist in energy healing for arthritis and chronic pain. He's also the author of the book, Arthritis, Natural Health and Prevention. Wonderful.
As I started talking with the researchers, I discovered two things. One, they know more than I ever want to know about the statistics for placebo-controlled trials. And two, what the world needs is not another researcher chasing a tiny, tiny pot of money. What the world needs is an industry partner to fund and drive the research. And so that became my mission, to become that industry partner, to grow into a company with multiple practitioners and that would appeal to a mainstream audience of people with chronic pain, and help drive this to mainstream. The vision is integrative medicine, where the energy healer collaborates with the rest of the healthcare team, working with the doctors and the physical therapists and the chiropractors and acupuncturists and everyone else to give the person the best possible care.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes show. I am your host, Bola. This is the show where we interview expert authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs in the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today I have a very special guest all the way from California. Welcome to the show, Mike Sententia.
Bola, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'll read a bit about your bio before we start. Mike Sententia is the founder of the Healing Lab based in California, USA. Mike's studies into energy healing began in 1991 as a member of the Healing Touch Professionals Association and the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine. Mike is a specialist in energy healing for arthritis and chronic pain. He's also the author of the book, Arthritis, Natural Health and Prevention. Wonderful. Welcome again, Mike. So tell us how you came to this place and what you feel the role of energy healing is in the future of healthcare. First, how did you come to this place as a really finding Healing Lab, and what do you think this energy healing has as a role in the future of healthcare and medicine?
Absolutely. So I've been working with energy ever since I was a kid. A friend who loved fantasy novels talked about feeling energy from trees, and I tried it and I felt some tingling, and I went to the ocean near my house and tuned into the energy, and I felt this whole body frisson, like an awakening of my skin. And I had a bunch of experiences like that. Now, how much of that was energy and how much of that was imagination? I have no idea. I was like 12. But it got me started wanting to understand this and figuring out, how do I sense energy? How do I observe energy? How do I start to make sense of this? And then in my 20s, I was partnered with a woman a bit older than me who she had chronic knee pain. She used to run. She had to give it up before we met. And whenever we'd go dancing or she'd garden or whatever, her knees would ache. And I started reading the energy of her knees and comparing it to the energy of my healthy knees, and then adjusting her knees to look like my knees, and her pain would come down. And the next day, her pain would be back, and I would do it again, and her pain would come down. And after 3 months of doing this, she wasn't having the aching when she would garden or dance, and she was able to start running again for the first time in years. And that got me started, turning this curiosity about energy into healing work. And I started doing it for all of my friends. And she at one point developed chronic hives. She was retraining to be a nurse. And after 9 months of it, she was telling me how miserable she was, that it wasn't just itchy. It was this like 8 out of 10 maddening itch. And I said, you know what? I don't really think I can do anything for hives. Like knee pain is one thing, but hives is complicated, but let's try it, right? If you're miserable, let's see what I can do. And I worked with her, right? She was a nurse, so she helped me understand the physiology of what was going on and all of the cycles in the body that sustain hives. And we tried looking at the skin, and the technique barely did anything. And we tried looking at the nerves that carry the itch signal, and her itching came down from an 8 out of 10 to a 4. And then later we added in some energy targeting the immune system, and she never had another outbreak of hives. And it was experiences like this that got friends telling me, I should offer this to people, but I felt really resistant, right? I was shy, and my father was the kind of atheist who makes fun of psychics and religious people. So I didn't want to share this with skeptics. But then her name was Lisa, the one with the knees and the hives. And in 2014, we had broken up in 2012 and, as happens, and lost touch. But then in 2014, I learned that she had cancer, and we reconnected, and I started flying out to Albuquerque to be part of the team taking care of her. And so for 6 months, I was, supporting her with that, and also developing healing techniques, targeting her pain and her insomnia, and she started having less pain, and she started sleeping better. And then in 2015, her second round of chemo ended, and she still had cancer. And a few months later, she died. And I mourned. But I also started to dream about, what if I could collaborate with her medical team to, be part of pain management? What if I could collaborate with cancer researchers, right? I collaborated with her, and we did stuff that really helped her hives. What if I could collaborate with cancer researchers to develop healing techniques for cancer patients? I started to think about the billions of people in the world who have chronic pain and have no good options. And she had always believed in my healing work more than I did, because I got to see the results, but she got to feel the results. And so that inspired me to start Healing Lab. And so in 2015, I started this initially imagining that I would be publishing the research. And as I started talking with the researchers, I discovered two things. One, they know more than I ever want to know about the statistics for placebo-controlled trials. And two, what the world needs is not another researcher chasing a tiny, tiny pot of money. What the world needs is an industry partner to fund and drive the research. And so that became my mission, to become that industry partner, to grow into a company with multiple practitioners and that would appeal to a mainstream audience of people with chronic pain, and help drive this to mainstream. The vision is integrative medicine, where the energy healer collaborates with the rest of the healthcare team, working with the doctors and the physical therapists and the chiropractors and acupuncturists and everyone else to give the person the best possible care, and with scientific research basis, where we have evidence for the efficacy of everything that we do. And I can talk about the last 50 years of energy healing research and where I see that going also.
Ooh, I love that. Thank you, Mike. honestly, it's always interesting to hear a lot of us who are energy practitioners and energy healers, how initially we had this reluctance or we had the resistance, we had an inertia. I also had the same coming from a Christian background. And it took me a while, and it was really due to the efficacy of the actual treatments that my son, who couldn't sleep at night, he definitely inspired me to train up, to first of all access it for myself, for my own self, and then to train up. So it's always about the proof is in the pudding. And
Absolutely.
I love the fact that you also had that initial inertia, and then you were encouraged by somebody who had the proof of the proof. And it's quite powerful. I would love to know a bit, Mike, about the research, because it is really the way forward for us to have multidisciplinary professionals working together in healthcare, because it's really about giving ownership, the empowerment of the being. And we tend to see ourselves as victims when we have other things working on us, when we are depending on things external to us. When we realize that there's a life force within us that is empowered, that is expanded, there's a consciousness within us that is expanded through our engagement with universal energy, that is truly empowering. And it's about how we combine all these different techniques based on what that individual is willing to believe, the availability of a range of techniques. So it's not one way. It's about expanding the availability of techniques based on what any individual wants to use as a permissions. So I think that's really the way forward, and I resonate with what you're doing. I would love to know a bit more about the research, because yes, there's always this discussion about, is energy healing real or is it just placebo? I would love to know a bit more about that before I have other questions for you. But
Absolutely.
I would love to know a little bit about that.
I love what you're saying about empowering people. I think that people are so often disempowered, especially by mainstream medicine, where doctors don't believe them. They have to fight to get treatment. So I think patient empowerment and client empowerment is so important. So we've been researching energy healing since the 70s. And when I first started Healing Lab, part of my resistance to doing it was like, geez, I've been working with friends for years, but how confident am I that the results are from energy healing and not from placebo, right? What's more likely, that I have discovered something missing from the laws of physics, or that there was some placebo going on, right? And so in order to be comfortable launching this company and asking people to pay me for my services and all of that, I read the research. I was only expecting to find like some case studies, right? Because there's so much skepticism in the world. I was blown away. So there's study. If we think about how we organize the research, the first question is energy healing real in the world? Does it affect the physical world? Does it affect living cells? Does it promote healing in multicellular organisms? And only then does it help humans. So is it out there in the world? There's research on inanimate matter. Energy healing affects the pH and infrared reflectivity of water. That's William Tiller and Stephen Schwartz did that research. Water doesn't believe anything. Water doesn't have placebo, but it still gets affected. There's research on cells in a petri dish, cell culture studies. You take E. coli and you heat it up until it's almost dead. That's called heat shocking it. And the E. coli that gets energy healing recovers, and the E. coli that doesn't dies. Now, this is not because we want to have really healthy E. coli. This is because E. coli is like the default thing that you research. And it also doesn't have beliefs and doesn't have placebo and doesn't know what you're doing to it. But it's still impacted by energy healing. That was Beverly Rubik. And a researcher named Javeri has done similar research on human and animal cells. You starve them, and then you give them nutrients, and the ones that get energy healing absorb more nutrients, like they're trying to recover harder. So inanimate matter, cells in a petri dish, plant and animal studies. Gloria Granowitz took mice with cancer. The ones that got energy healing, the cancer did not metastasize as much. Melinda Cotter took plant clippings in water. They got distance energy healing. The healers weren't even in the same room. And the plant clippings that did not get the healing all died within the first month of the research. And the plant clippings that did get the energy healing all lived for the full 90 days of the study. So there was no overlap. So often in research, like you get the treatment and 10% of people get more better, and it's like this, you have to run a bunch of statistics. I love this research because everything died in a month and everything lived for 3 months. It's great. And then and by the way, for any scientists in the audience, the p-value, the probability that the results were just coincidence, for medical research, we aim for stronger than 1 in 100. So a 1% chance is good for medicine. For physics evidence, we aim for a 1 in 300. So 1/3% chance is good evidence. All of the research that I just cited had a 1 in 1,000 chance that it was a coincidence. So 10 times stronger than the threshold for medical evidence. So now after we have all that, now we get to the human research. And in placebo-controlled trials, what we're finding is that energy healing reduces pain and anxiety for participants, including with knee osteoarthritis. That's Andrea Gordon and Durfa Liu did some great research, 2 different studies on energy healing for knee osteoarthritis. Not everyone, but the statistically significant reduction in pain, anxiety, increase in mobility, great results. So actually that brings me to one point that you said that I actually need to disagree with. You talked about belief, and if people can be open to the belief that then they can heal. My experience and what that research tells me is this stuff works on a cellular level. The person doesn't need to believe. The cells in the petri dish don't believe anything. And most of my clients start as skeptics. I have this money back guarantee. I'll tell you about it in a minute. But all the time, I have clients tell me, I don't believe in energy healing. I would never try energy healing, except you have this money back guarantee, so let's give it a try. And they come in and they say, I don't think it's going to work, but do your thing. And I do my thing, and their pain comes down. And then a week later, they send me a note. And they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I'm becoming a believer. And I love converting skeptics like that, because as you say, the proof is in the pudding. But you don't have to believe. This stuff just...
I will come to that in a minute. Let me touch on that, Mike. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, there are beliefs that are conscious and beliefs that are unconscious. And there is an infinite intelligence within us. Our cells contain infinite intelligence because we are energy beings. It's not all about matter. It's all about the density. We are spirit beings. And yes, there is a need to understand how things work in a much more scientific or rational way. But there are different ways of explaining the same thing. And it's important to remember that really we have this spiritual understanding of free will. And there is a need for us to hold directed intentions for things that happen or things that we want to happen, things that we prefer, our preferred outcomes. And sometimes these preferred outcomes are unconscious and sometimes they're conscious. So that it's what is dominant within us. But the bottom line is there is infinite intelligence that the energy healing connects with. This is the energy because we are acting as an intermediate, bringing down universal energy to really activate the energy meridians of those we are supporting, those who are receiving this energy healing, those who have certain meridians within them, disordered or diseased or blocked. So it's not always one way to explain something. So that's what I will say, that there is an infinite intelligence that may not be so rational. And it does explain some of what you have said as to how there are certain non-thinking, non-rational non-logical beings or organisms that actually respond to energy healing. So it occurs at a conscious and an unconscious level. So this is the difference. There will be those who will not respond to it, and those who will respond to it. But it's all about infinite energy, which we are all a part of. Each and every one of us is an infinite part of that universal energy. And what we are doing as healers is we are activating blocked meridians within beings or within entities or within things that are holding certain elements of consciousness and certain elements of unconsciousness. So that is how I would explain that. It's not always conscious beliefs, but it really comes down to the infinite intelligence, which is existence within. That's who we are. And it may not be something that science can relate to, but it's definitely something that a lot of us have come to understand as the basic structure of our own existence, of everything that exists, whether it's living or not living. So yes, it may not be conscious, it may be unconscious, but it's still infinite intelligence that exists within everything that exists. That's how I would explain that. But I do understand where you're coming from, that you have done this research, and it has proven that there are beings that do not always hold intentions, but they do have their healing needs met. So it's not about making a conscious intention. So I do agree with that. It's about how we explain these things a lot of the times.
It's really interesting. Different healers from different traditions or just from their own personal background all have different takes on how this all works. And we don't have definitive answers yet. And I think that's a beautiful thing. The one thing I do want people to know, and that I try to make sure that, people who hear me on speak know, is even if they don't identify as believing in energy healing, even if they identify as being a skeptic, I get results for skeptics all the time. And if they have pain, they can still seek out energy healing and get some help.
Yes, I love you sharing the research. It's always because there are lots of us who really cannot move beyond this degree of inertial resistance until we get the evidence. And there's some who all they need is the proof of the pudding and they're good to go. So it's good to have this range of information so that we can all, whatever we are aligning to, we can all come to really allow our healing, allow our expansion. Because this is what it boils down to. This is why I've written this book, the Daily Soul Bytes. This book is really about higher perspectives. It's a book that encourages us to understand ourselves, the different parts of self, physical ego self, as well as the higher self, which tends to have empowering beliefs, empowering perspectives. It's not just about beliefs, it's about perspectives of compassion, of love, of resonance, of resilience. Because the physical ego self tends to be all about fear, tends to be more about, survival. And we can begin to identify these two different perspectives within us and choose to align. This universe is a universe of choice. So we can choose to align to higher perspectives that really empower us. So yes, I do believe in having a range of perspectives that each individual can really become much more aware, because it's all down to self-awareness, much more aware of what they prefer, what they want to align to. So I'd love to hear about your book as well before. So I want to ask you another question. Can you describe what it feels like to work with chronic pain, and how your work, your practice really supports those who have chronic pain, the process?
Yeah. So when I work with chronic pain, or really when I work with anything, I take a slightly different approach. I'm not channeling a universal energy. I'm dialing in just the right energy for each tissue involved in the condition. So with chronic pain, when nerves signal pain over and over, they learn to signal pain better and better. That's what chronic pain is. It has a unique
Yeah.
physiology and a unique energy signature. And when I align to that energy signature really precisely and suppress it, for so many of my clients, their pain is dropping in about a minute. And it's dropping by like 50%. Um, and it's that kind of a fast and obvious result that winds up being key for having the proof be in the pudding, for showing them that, yeah, this really is working. And that's part of that approach of dialing in just the right energy for each tissue. And then I also have an energy targeting inflammation. I have an energy targeting for arthritis. When the cartilage has broken down and degenerated, it normally does not grow back. But I have an energy based on the energy of a child's cartilage, because, when we're kids, everything's growing really well. It's designed to help the cartilage regrow. And what I find is that after a year of working with me, osteoarthritis clients don't need me anymore. And also, I've had, so far I am 1 for 1 on this. I'm always cautious about having an N of 1, but a client who was getting annual CT scans for another condition, every year she'd get the CT scan and they'd also say, and you have arthritis in her hip. And she came in, she saw me, she had 8 out of 10 pain the first day. It was difficult just walking from the door of my office to the couch. By the end of the first day, her pain was down from an 8 to a 4. By the end of the year, her pain was down to a 2, and she was walking 3 to 4 miles a day. And then as she continued getting CT scans, they never again commented on the arthritis in her hip. So preliminary evidence that the cartilage was actually regrowing for her. So that's really exciting. And dialing in just the right energy for each tissue seems to be key to getting these stronger, longer lasting results and more reliable. That's why I offer a guarantee with everything that I do. It's really simple. Come in for your session, no upfront payment. You're going to feel the results right away. We'll send you an invoice after. If you like the way you feel, pay the invoice. If you don't like the way you feel, don't pay the invoice. Even if you feel a little better, but you expected more, hey, don't pay the invoice. No hard feelings. And this is really key, at least in my experience, to letting skeptics try it for themselves and get that experience that, oh, wow, this really works for me. So that's been initially was confronting, and nobody likes hearing when it doesn't work. When the thing that they've done was ineffective, but it's been great for reaching more people and also for leveling up my skills, right? If every time it doesn't work, I find out and then I get a chance to fix it, because I reach out to clients every week to say, hey, how are you feeling? Is it still working? And it's guaranteed for a month. So if like 2 weeks in, their pain comes back, they get a free touch-up and I get to see what happened to the energy and how do I fix it so that doesn't happen next time, so it lasts longer for them. And that has been so key to developing and improving my skills, is to do all of that debugging for clients.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. And energy healing, there's so many different types of it. I would love to know more about what you mentioned, the dialing in. How do you do that?
Mm-hmm. So the way most of the healing techniques that I use day to day, I've developed myself over the last 15, 20 years. For dialing in just the right energy, it kind of started with that first one with Lisa, where I was looking at the energy of her knees and the energy of my knees. What I do these days is I'm comparing healthy tissue and affected tissue. So with a client with chronic pain, I read the energy of their nerves that have the pain. And I also read the energy of their nerves elsewhere in their body that doesn't have the pain. And I see what parts of the energy signature are elevated in the nerves with pain relative to the nerves without pain. and then I suppress those parts of the energy signature. Now, one of the keys is it's really important to find all of those parts. If I miss some of that, it has very little effect on their pain. Like if I suppress half of those signatures, it's not like I get half of the reduction in pain that we normally get. I get basically no reduction in pain. So the key is finding all of the parts that are elevated relative to non-pain nerves and suppressing all of that. The other way I develop the techniques is like for the cartilage was looking at not their knee with arthritis versus their knee without arthritis, but their knee with arthritis versus cartilage that's growing and healthy, which in that case is a child's cartilage. And that becomes the template that I'm using to find the healthy signature that we want their cartilage to have.
So would you say you were using intuition and telepathy to sense these signatures? What skills would you say you were using to sense the signatures without, because this is not something that is visible?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love this. So often I'm talking with people who are like, their podcast is on back pain and physical therapy. And so I often don't get these kind of digging in questions. So I love that. The technique that I use, I call it sensory connections. And you're probably familiar with, making an energy connections. You can send energy to someone. And I do that, but with sensory connections. What I do is I make a connection and I don't send any energy. I leave the connection quiet. I really steady my own energy and steady the energy in the connection. And I let it absorb a tiny amount of the person's energy, like how a thermometer absorbs a tiny amount of heat to measure temperature. And that lets me feel what's the energy signature at that location. Now, how do I feel it there's a level of intuition and proprioception in that. And then what I do is I make a network of these sensory connections throughout the person's knee or shoulder or whatever I'm working with. And read the energy at each point. And because I've read the energy of different tissue over and over, I can recognize, that's the energy of cartilage, that's the energy of tendon, that's the energy of inflamed tendon, right? I can recognize what the different energy signatures are and know where I need to make some energy adjustments. And when I teach classes, it typically takes, I've taught in a weekend workshop, I'll teach people how to quiet their own energy and just feel the energy of a knee as a whole. And then in my year long, where I do one weekend a month for 9 or 10 months, that's where I can teach people how to make a sensory connection and read the energy in this more precise way that lets them start to dial in just the right energy.
I love that. I love that. Yes, this is all about being led to what we feel we have a passion for. And I love the way your passion has led you to really create this really quite powerful energy healing modality.
Thank you.
Because there are so many different techniques, and I also have cancer patients, and it's really using universal energy, it's Reiki energy healing that is trained through attunements from a Reiki master, and it's all about a lineage that we all kind of link up with, and it's a Japanese lineage of healing. So this is just another different type of energy healing, and I love the way that you were really creating a difference in the pain that people can let go of, and those that you teach, giving them an opportunity to expand on the passion they have to be healers from that scientific point of view. So I do appreciate. I do also want to ask you for a question around those who are seeking energy healers, as who are patients seeking energy healers, or who have any kind of ailment. What would you ask them? Because there are different types of energy healing.
Yeah.
What would you ask them to look out for?
I would say find someone with a money-back guarantee. That matters a lot more than certifications, right? A certification means somebody took some training, You don't know if that system of energy healing is going to work for you. You don't know if how effective that person is at doing that system. But if they have a money back guarantee, that means that they stand 100% behind their results. And so ask them, do you guarantee your work? How does the guarantee work? Do I have to pay you up front and then there's hoops to jump through? Or do I, no upfront payment and I pay you once I get the results? Ask them if they've ever honored the guarantee, right? How often do they not charge someone? Because nothing works for everyone. And routinely, about 10, maybe 15% of the time, I have clients who don't get results and they don't pay, and I don't want them to pay. I feel great knowing that the business is built entirely with people who love what I do. And so I'd say that's the number one thing is ask them if they guarantee their work, ask them how the guarantee works, make sure that it's super easy to not pay for the thing if it doesn't work. That's what you want to look for.
I love that. Thank you. What would you say is happening for those who do not actually get the outcomes that they've come? How do you explain that?
I think about that all. That's probably the number one thing that I think about these days is folks who don't get results, folks where they get results, but it only lasts for, a couple of weeks rather than the 4 weeks that most of my clients are getting. What's going on there? And the nearest that I can tell is some people have a chronic pain signature that is simpler. And some people have a chronic pain signature with a lot more bits to it. I have no idea why. This doesn't seem to track to energy practitioner versus non-energy practitioner. It doesn't seem to track to health. It doesn't seem to track to level of chronic pain. Certainly doesn't track to intelligence or spirituality or any of those things, right? This is not a better or worse. This is just a different people are different. And then also, some people's energy signature changes more over time. Again, just different people are different. And so the more complex an energy signature is, the harder it is for me to find all of the different parts that I need to suppress. And so my take on when something doesn't work is that if I can get better at reading the energy more precisely, at suppressing the signatures more thoroughly, at making the energy more robust and more able to adjust with the person's energy as their own energy shifts, then we can get this to work for more people. And that's what I found over time is as I have leveled up these skills, people who were having the energy stop working, we get it working. We get it to last longer. Friends who I couldn't do anything for their pain, after I make some improvements and I come back 6 months later, I now get results. Not for everyone, of course, but I'm getting the percentage of people who don't get results smaller and smaller. And that's part of why I really like taking this view of, the reason why it didn't work is because there's a skill gap in me, because then I can close that gap and get more results for more people. And that is where I love being.
Yes, I did ask that question because it's really important for us to get a full understanding of what it is we offer and how we offer it. Some understanding that from you are a practitioner and the outcomes of the patient is dependent on your skills as an energy healer. Am I right? Is totally dependent on your skills, much like the medical doctor, depending on the knowledge and the expertise that they have learned over the years. And what is the name of your energy healing technique again? What would you call it?
Yeah, so my company is Healing Lab. It's at healinglab.org. And the system that I've developed, I call Healing Lab Energetics.
It's always good to share, different perspectives on very similar subjects. I definitely find that our own techniques are different, but it's not about this or that. It's about this and that. It's about having the availability of different techniques. Reiki energy healing is really more about being a vessel and being that universal energy and allowing universal energy to really assess whatever area in a person's life needs to receive an upgrade, needs to receive expansion of consciousness. And it is sometimes an unconscious direction, and it's sometimes quite conscious. But it's always taking account of the conscious perspective, conscious preference, conscious intentions, as well as the unconscious. Because at the end of the day, the higher mind, which is really where our spiritual life force is based, really is the one that is guiding those healing sessions. The healing sessions are being held in the hands of the higher mind, in the hands of our spirit self, when we allow as much of that as we allow. So that is a different aspect, because something always changes, something always expands when you are receiving Reiki energy healing. It may be something to do with finances, for instance. There may be those who go for Reiki energy healing because they want to reduce the level of poverty in their lives. It really encounters any area of life. It could be social, it could be health, it could be economic, it could be something to do with relationships. So it's always interesting when people receive different types of energy healing, and they can begin to be clearer as to how to align to the practitioners that will really resonate with what their passion is, what they are willing to give a try. And I do appreciate your advice and your expertise, and mentioning that, go to those who are ready to actually give you your money back if something doesn't work, or if you find no particular change that is expansive. It's all about expanding. It's all about expanding. It's all about healing and not staying contracted, not staying in that survival of fear mode, but expanding into empowerment, into a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of being. So I do appreciate that empowered advice that you have given to our audience today. Do you have any final words today?
Just thank you so much for having me. If any of the listeners have chronic pain or know someone who does, please send them to healinglab.org to book a free consultation with me. And like I said, everything I do has a money-back guarantee. You don't even pay until you're satisfied. So even if there's a skeptic in your life who has pain but you think might benefit from this, tell them about it. Tell them about the guarantee. Let them give it a try. And my second book is coming out. It's Transforming Pain, the Emerging Science of Energy Healing for Pain Management. And it's all about the research on energy healing, what the future research might look like, how to make it mainstream and covered by insurance, and why energy healing will drive the next scientific revolution. So you can get that when it comes out at healinglab.org also.
I forgot to ask you about your first book. This is the one you wrote about arthritis and natural healing.
That's right.
Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it's all about what you can do for arthritis, especially osteoarthritis, as far as nutrition, evidence-based supplements, stuff that has actual research behind it. As far as nutrition, as far as exercise, as far as things like lowering cholesterol. Lowering cholesterol actually has a significant impact on arthritis. And then also as far as energy healing and how to find a great energy healer for you. It grew out of a class, and that I turned it into a webinar and then a book. So if you're interested in that, You can also sign up for my mailing list and get a free copy of the ebook at healinglab.org.
Oh, that is so fantastic, because arthritis is so debilitating.
It really is.
And it's beginning to affect not just old age now. There are those who are quite young and, getting a reduction in the low degree of cartilage and living in quite chronic pain. So it really impacts on a wider percentage of population than we think. So
And even
thank you.
And even if you don't have arthritis, but you're worried about getting it, the tips in there are also around prevention. So it has good stuff for you.
Oh, that's powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mike.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to be here.
And I would like to thank my audience and invite you to subscribe and to grab Mike's books and to look out for his next book and to grab the arthritis book from his website, thehealinglab.com. And I look forward to seeing you subscribe, if you haven't subscribed yet, to the Daily Soul Bytes show on YouTube and everywhere you listen to your podcast, your audio podcast online, and to grab Daily Soul Bytes, my book, anywhere books are sold online, and also the upcoming launch, to join me for the upcoming launch of audiobook, the 28th of August. I look forward to seeing you join me and to leave a review. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.